So welcome to the Empower Hour. The Empower Hour is a monthly event set up by Empower People, and the lovely Mike King with On the Mic with Mike on ESPN Richmond allows us to record the Empower Hour, and it is featured on ESPN Richmond, which is 106.1 FM. So thank you for everybody who's tuning in on Facebook, and thank you to our panel of experts. I have to do a shout out because if you've been following the Empower Hour, you've been seeing a steady or reoccurring traditional, however you want to say it, panel of experts come on the program every month. John, Brian, and Stacie, right? Well, guess what? They've been through some serious training and education, and now, as of last week, they are now Empower People certified small business and nonprofit advisors. They had to go through a 2-hour exam last week. And so you'll see that Stacie has her virtual background showcasing her certification, and John and Brian are working on it. They have their certification, just to be clear, they're working on getting the virtual backgrounds. So let's just take a moment, congratulate them. Stacie, John, Brian, would you like to add anything about the program and the certification and how grueling it was?
It's only a 300-page book that we had to
It was light reading, easy reading.
Brian is online.
Woo!
My only comment is it's a good thing that this was a certification for you as opposed to a certification on IT.
So let's get started with the Empower Hour. We have a question we have to still answer from last month, and then we have a new question we got to get to. So I just want to make sure that we have enough time for both questions. So we're going to have to pivot to the second question. If Mike, if you could help us out to like 9:35, we want to make sure we get to the second question so both questions get answered. Thank you. Jeopardy might be good, the song. I don't know if we could get that. That'd be a great sound effect for the future. What is? So the first question is, if I'm trying to help people, wrong one, framing, negotiating cooperative skills with other companies, partners from a business, legal, and skill communication standpoint. So they want to know, how do you frame, negotiate cooperative deals with other companies or partners from a business, legal, and skill standpoint? So we could look at this as possible brand partnerships, strategic partnerships, things of that nature. So I open the floor to the panel of certified, let me rephrase, certified advisors.
I'd say we let the legal experts start with some of the structures. They are on the legal
It
side.
asked for business first. It says business, legal. So
Okay, business purposes. Why would we do this?
So legal considerations with strategic partnerships. I think the first sort of overarching thing is, one, you need to sit down at the table and negotiate out all the pertinent points and information and responsibilities and those types of things. This is a very broad overview of it. And then two, you've got to get it in writing. I think you need some sort of agreement. You're talking about partnering with another company in most circumstances. You don't know how they operate. They don't know how you operate. There's a lot of moving parts on both sides. Yes, you're coming together to try to achieve some common goal or objective, but you need to get it in writing. You need to think about how you're going to get out if it's not working. Everything looks great until you get started and things come up that you couldn't have anticipated. So how are you going to address those contingencies first and foremost? You want to think about how you're going to mitigate some of your potential risk there. Like, how can you limit damages? How can you get the other party to indemnify you if they do something wrong that impacts your business, your clients, your customers? How are you going to handle disputes? All of those things I think are important, and they're the most overlooked things when people start moving into strategic partnerships. It's always, hey, we can do this and probably generate significant amount of additional revenue for both of us, but they don't think about the repercussions on the back end and getting all of that in writing. And it's never going to be an easier time to get it in writing than when you're getting started. Everyone's excited. It's a, seems like a good opportunity. You're more than likely to be able to iron out those things because you're still on the same page. You won't be able to go back and straighten any of that out once something goes wrong.
So sometimes the agreements, when we think about partnering together, people think in the legal terms of actual business partners and ownership and those things, but there are a lot of, and I've been through one where working, when you do work for state or local government engagements, typically they want a fixed fee price point, right? And there are rules inside of those particular types of agreements. You have to be a company of a certain size. You have to have a certain revenue, at least $3 million in annual revenue over 3 years in order to even bid some of these. So for smaller companies that want to partner up with other companies, we call them teaming agreements. And I entered one with a few years back, when I was starting my business to do some work for Chesterfield County. And in those teaming agreements, we each still owned our own company, but you did have to have the roles and responsibilities that were very clear. So we partnered with a larger firm that was certified under what's called CAI, right, for statements of work with the local government. They were just an overseer. Now they got a certain percentage of the engagement fee, right? And then so we had to negotiate how much we were being paid by each firm for the roles and responsibilities. It's kind of like subcontracting, but it's a different legal agreement, and it is time bound, and it is bound to one specific work effort that you're doing. So you can continue to engage with those, but one of the things that I also found is important to think about is when you're exiting those agreements, most of those say you have to notify in writing that you wish to exit those agreements. Otherwise, the legal statutes of of ownership and liability are still active legally, even though you're not partnered and engaging with that partner anymore. So that's one of the things that you just need to make sure you seek counsel when, and as John said, get it in writing, but even if it's just a teaming agreement, to engage in that first. Who's going to pay what? How much are you going to get out of that revenue? How is it going to be split? From a communications perspective, we also had to identify which partner was going to hold the assets, the things we created, right? The documentation, the deliverables, whatever we were creating on behalf of the client, who was going to hold that in their computer system and make sure that the others had access to it, because you don't use the same software, all together. You don't have the same central repository, and you want to make sure there's transparency and there's open access to everything that all the partners are creating. So that was one of the elements. And then we had very clear communication schedules of how we communicated with the client, who was the person that was going to be the main client interface. What did we do if there were questions of how each company was performing their duties, and who was going to mediate that. So our main third party project manager was kind of our mediator between the other two companies. And so those are just some of the roles and responsibilities that I encountered with that particular teaming agreement. It went well. But it was a lot of upfront thinking and preparation, as John stated, to make sure that all three companies were not only protected, but clear, and so that we had a good, strong business working relationship. It was logical, not emotional.
Yeah. John and Stacie already hit on the two key things to me, at least, which is get it in writing and then define the roles and responsibilities. The one area I'll touch on where I've seen things fall apart before is upfront define what your process is going to be for when things change along the way after you've started the agreement, whether it be additional work that was outside the scope that was originally discussed or whatever it is. Just have a process for making those changes and then documenting what's done. I've seen so many times where people put all this effort in up front, but then something changed, and as opposed to documenting what those changes were, it was done verbally or by handshake, and then there was confusion later on down the road for what had been discussed and agreed to after the fact. So in construction be a change order system. But anytime you're entering into that type of partnership agreement, and there's going to be something that gets tweaked further down the line as far as who's doing what or what scope is, that also needs to be documented and agreed upon in writing, so everybody's on the same page when it gets to be time for shelling the money out to people. So
Yeah,
Here we go,
the
very
other
quickly.
thing on there that we may not have hit quite as much that I think is extremely important, is getting a little bit more maybe into the details, is you're going to have to just make sure there's some confidentiality provisions, and you're going to have to discuss intellectual property. Likely both sides are going to put some of their intellectual property into this, and it's common for some new intellectual property to be created as part of these agreements. So who owns it, who can do what with it? You know, a lot of times you're talking about creating something that can be monetized. How's all that going to work? So there's a lot of moving parts here that you need to play out. So just jumping into it without thinking through some of it oftentimes leads to a lot of issues that could have been prevented.
One of the things that we talk about, Tiffany and I, she is the princess of purpose. So we had John talking about the legal side, Stacie in operations, and Brian on the HR side. When you go and you find people who are aligned with purpose, maybe some of that we're able to cut out some of the problems on the back end. Tiffany, really quickly touch on the importance there so that down the road we don't run into as many of those problems, because we went in understanding our roles and how and our thought processes.
So from my perspective, I'm going to draw on my experience from working with small businesses. A lot of times small businesses will go into strategic partnerships without the focus on their purpose, but focus on a pain point that they're currently experiencing. And so they go into a strategic partnership or alliance thinking it's going to alleviate a pain point. But at the end of the day, they haven't focused on the purpose and who they're serving. And by ignoring that, they could be engaging in a strategic partnership that could diminish their purpose and diminish their brand. Let's throw an example on some brands we all know. Patagonia. Do you think Patagonia and Walmart are going to enter into a strategic partnership? Off the top of my head, I would say no, and that's rooted in what purpose? Their purpose is not aligned. So by going in, when you're a small business and you're having some issues, whether it be revenue generation, growth, operations, getting in, just looking at it from, can this strategic partnership fix my problem? That's short-sighted and it's reactionary. It's not looking at how is this strategic partnership or alliance going to grow and last the long haul in order to help those that we are serving. And that's what I call purpose alignment. If there isn't purpose alignment, the strategic partnership actually has no chance of surviving.
There we go, very quickly. So this is the Empower Hour. Very quickly, let's go down and introduce the folks on the panel here really quickly. So this is Tiffany Joy Green. This is her baby right here, the Empower Hour. Brings together legal, brings together folks in the community, stakeholders. She has folks who are certified now. Tiffany, do we have to call them a name like a laureate or some? We have to come up with something really fancy for folks who are like that. So just we're gonna work on that a little bit. Hey, John Rabil, really quickly, tell folks who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm John Rabil. I own Entrepreneur Legal Advisors, or ELA. And so we're a law firm, work with entrepreneurs, small business owners, typically as outside general counsel. And so We focus on being advisors, helping them sort of navigate legal risk issues in a proactive way and identify risks that they might be scared they don't know about. And a little bit different, we do subscription legal services as opposed to traditional hourly services. So we're a little more efficient and cost effective for businesses.
And if it's Wednesday and I need an attorney, when did I need an attorney, counselor?
Several days before that, at least.
There we go. Alrighty, Kristen, welcome back to the program. Tell folks you are what you do.
Good morning. I'm Kristen Seibert with Community Safety and Response Educators. We offer CPR, first aid, and stop the bleed training to the community, and we offer advanced life support certification to our healthcare heroes.
There we go. Alrighty, thank you, thank you. We got the one and only low-key Lizzie Oz. Welcome back, ma'am.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm Lizzie Ortiz, and I'm a health and wellness and life coach. And basically, what I do is that I help people with their lives and help them with coaching. And so I'm basically new to the area, and so that's basically what I do.
And you light up every room that you go into, that is for sure. Brian Kinzie, our HR expert. How are you, sir?
Good morning. My name is Brian Kinzie. My company is Tinker HR. We basically help companies solve people problems. So it can be anything from helping with recruitment, retention, compliance, putting together handbooks for companies, sticky employee situations, HR strategy, all those things HR departments do for big companies, we do on a fractional basis for smaller organizations. So
call Brian so you don't have to tinker with your HR. Hey, Tiffany, how's that? I've been holding that one for a while. Very original. I'm sure he has never heard that.
So, yeah, so since we didn't have an agreement in place, Mike, I can't give you credit for that. So,
counselor, give me a little help here. Alrighty, Stacie Briley Goodman. She is our operations expert. And Stacie, tell folks here on what you do.
So I am the owner and principal consultant of Origamic Solutions. We are a small business advisory firm, and we help our clients ensure that their back office project infrastructure and processes are efficient and effective, and preparing them to support future growth. So we help them navigate to operational excellence and level up with love.
We level up with love. We have to take a moment to shout out your partner in crime, our guy Tim Pisani. When I see him now, I say, we love when you call it Big Papa. It's a congratulations to him and the missus on the, they became parents. Was it Monday?
It was last Monday. Yeah. Not this Monday a week ago. Yes. Savannah was graced in, as he calls it, broke out of jail. And that is my new adopted grandbaby. And so we're all
a week into it. They're veterans right now. They got it all figured out. There you go.
Pretty surprised. He's doing very well. So
he had to look like a guy who could have it figured out. So congratulations to them. Alrighty, Tiffany Green. This is the Empower Hour. We talk to folks, and we give the audience out there in Facebook land the idea, the ability to talk to these minds that you put together. So, ma'am, go ahead and let's keep going. We are 6 minutes and no, you told me 9:35, correct?
9:35 is when we have to transition to the next question. So let's go back to strategic part. Oh, Stacie, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, on the strategic partnership, I did have some. So we were talking about when you enter in, one of the things you were talking about Patagonia and Walmart not having the same necessarily aligned in purpose, but you can go into partnership with people who have the same purpose, but maybe they approach things differently, and there's some perceived perceptions that just because of the way you operate, that may get misconstrued, or personal, choices. And I think that's one of the things when you go into partnership, even though it looks really good on paper, that this makes complete sense. We're aligned in purpose. We know what we're going after. make sure you're very careful with who you select as an individual. Because people bring their own backgrounds, their own hidden like expectations that they don't necessarily verbally communicate or articulate. And so you just need to be also very careful with who you select to go in. Make sure you know them well in from a well-rounded viewpoint, you know, personally and professionally.
I know that for a lot of us, when we were kids, what was one of the things parents and older people would tell us, be careful of the company you keep, because even if you're not doing the things that your friends are doing, people are going to assume that you are. So when you go into a strategic partnership, be careful of the company you keep, because whatever brand equity they have or they don't have, whatever trust folks have or don't have in that brand will spill over onto you. Anything you can do about that, John? Any tips on that from a risk management standpoint, especially when you commingle brands?
On how to protect yourself? Yeah, you gotta, I think, negotiate and put in writing in the agreement an exit for yourself. So some sort of way to get out of it. I would suggest no less than or no more than 30 days would be a good starting point. Obviously, depending on the specifics of the deal, that may not be appropriate, but you'll want some way to get out of there. You want some way to get out of there. If they breach the agreement, you know, maybe you've got some stipulations in there about what they can and can't do with your intellectual property, or how they can or can't communicate with your clients. And so if they or anyone oversteps those boundaries, you want to be able to get out and potentially look at any damages that you could go after if your business has been harmed through that.
Really quickly, Lizzie, you are your business. You're the person. Talk a little bit what this means, because you are the product. You know, when you're out there coaching, it's Lizzie walking into a room. It's Lizzie helping me. Talk about what that means to you when you decide to partner with people.
Well, basically what I do is, it's every individual person is separate. I mean, for me, if I'm partnering with someone, I'm partnering with that person. And so I have to make sure that I feel that they are who they are. I have to feel in alignment with them. I have to feel comfortable with them. I have to feel like, they are who they say they are. I have, in my lifetime, I have been burned so many times. And I'll be honest, I am one of those people that I trust easily. I should say I have trusted easily. And, and I just believe in people. And I believe in a lot of times what they say. And because I want to, just, I've always had hope for people. So when they're talking to me and they're saying, this and this and this and that, and I'm just like, okay, how can I help you? What can I do? And, and that's just who I am. So when I'm trying to align with someone and help them, and just to be able to, they're saying, okay, well, I can do something for you too. And we are working together. And a lot of times, it doesn't work out sometimes. And so you have to be very, very careful who you align yourself with, or who you collaborate with, or who you work with, because, in this day and age, and people just, they're not who they say they are, I should say. So and I agree, you have to be very careful as far as making sure, you have to make sure that you do a contract. And I was very interested in what you said, Stacie, that was it Stacie, did you say about the partnership, the teaming agreement? Yeah. Yes. So that's the teaming agreement. I mean, I was very interested in that. So thank you. That's very important. Thank you, Mike.
It's nice with the teaming agreement because, like you said, when you're going into this partnership, you're all excited. It's like dating, right? And then
Yeah.
you're like, "Yay, we're getting married!" It's all
Yes, that's
exciting.
exactly.
And then you're like, "Yeah, I didn't think about." They're like, "Well, I'm going to need a prenuptial agreement. It's called teaming agreement for you," and that kind of throws water on the emotional fire. But it is what helps to give you some sense of risk mitigation, and it brings a lot of that and heightened emotion of excitement of, yay, we're going to be, we're great friends and we do this. And I was in the teaming agreement I was in, I knew one of the guys very, pretty well. Would I go back into another teaming agreement with him? Probably not. It worked. We got through it. But I also learned as I got through it that I'm like, okay, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't great. Right. And so you have to keep your eyes open as you're going through these, because people do change, their lives change. And it wasn't the business side of this partner. It was the personal side of his, one of his choices that I grew out of alignment with. I was very much in alignment with him business wise, but our personalities and personal choices, and now that everything's on the internet, it was something I had to, choose to, okay, now I need to be, not continue forward. I need to find another path. Very grateful to this individual professionally, but that is something when you're going into these agreements, and I would say keep them shorter term until you really get to know them. Keep them time bound, for specific engagements. The last thing I was going to say is, because my mother has gone into many of these, types of agreements and business and property ownership and things of that nature, is you need to understand what happens in the catastrophic event situation that somebody passes away unexpectedly. They're generally, in those cases, a spouse or a child will take over the ownership of some of their assets, including their company assets or company ownerships of stock or, whatever it is. Now you have a new person and you don't know that person. So you have to start kind of thinking about some of the things that are maybe a little more morbid, but they are reality. At any point in time, you could get in a car crash and that's the end of it. It is what it is. And you have to think about those elements.
Right.
I like what you said too, Stacie, because a lot of times before you do a partnership agreement, I kind of word it a little different. You got to do short-term engagements. You got to date. I mean, maybe some people like arranged marriages, no judgment here, but I encourage in business, you want to do some dating before you get married. And even though you get married, how many marriages end up in divorce? It's about 50%, right? And why is that? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the big reasons is people get married without knowing who they are first. So if you go into a strategic partnership, and I'm focusing solely now on the small business and probably the micro business more, if you don't know who you are and why you're doing it, or go your purpose, and you start partnering with people, you're not really you're looking for savior, you're not looking for a partnership. And so eventually that agreement will cease to exist, that partnership will cease to exist.
Yeah, I would just agree with the maturity. There's a business maturity and a personal maturity that both have to evaluate there.
So now we're going to transition to the next question. It is, if I'm trying to help people in the local area, would it be good to comp a few clients who use my services? Whether I'm coaching them on my wellness side or life coaching side, I was thinking of using them as references here within the RVA community.
Comping them.
Kristen, why don't you go ahead and start off with that one, ma'am? I'm sure people hit you up and say, a number of times, let's do this thing. And I know a lot of people. And if you give me something for free, I'll tell everyone how great you are.
That is certain.
Just a second, Mike. I'd like to start with one of the advisors and we'll circle back to Kristen if that's okay.
Okay, I think it's usually so as far as comping, I'm not going to say that I haven't gone into bartering agreements. My lessons learned of going into bartering agreements is know why you're going to go into it and really level set your expectations of what you're going to get out of it. Everyone has good intentions when they start them, but over time they could alter and adjust. So I've started and ended bartering agreements when things of value did not equal, right? And so as far as, should I comp them to make them a client? The only other element, I did it sometimes for learning experiences and helping, trying to help out that customer who may have not had the finances. But I knew I was going to get something also value out of it by using that as a learning experience to cultivate how to improve services going forward. Sometimes the comp agreement is very balanced, and it's for a shorter term period, right? But what I have also found is you need to make sure if you're going to comp them that you provide the services at the exact same level you would be providing the services to someone who is paying. Because that person, if they're going to advocate for you, needs to be able to authentically say, yes, I received these services. This was my experience, and that you didn't, shortchange that. But what happens if you start doing services and it didn't meet their expectations, right? Are they still going to, promote you, that kind of thing? So I can't tell somebody not to do it. I don't say I wouldn't do it again. I just think you have to be very, very clear with what your expectations are of that agreement. And then the final piece is sometimes there is more value when they put some money down on the table. When you get something for free, your expectations are a little bit different. You may be getting more than you would have gotten if you had been paying for something. So just, it's harder to control some of those levels of services, where if you have they actually are in and, you barter services that way. I pay equal for your services that you pay for mine. That's bartering, but comping is different. It's one-sided. So you have to just be clear of what you're getting about what you're looking for in value out of it.
I would say freemiums are a really good option as well. But there's a reason why the big guns use freemiums all the time. But when you use your freemium, you yourself as a small business owner have to be clear on what that freemium is going to be and stick to the boundaries, so you don't feel like you end up giving away a lot more than what you initially said you were going to give away. So it's up to you to stay true to your statement of work for that freemium. I also believe that if you have, you're just starting out in a new career and you are trying to get business, it is okay to have some engagements where you don't charge, so you can start building your resume. But you have to be very clear on, again, what that statement of work is, and be very clear, like, okay, my goal is to have 3, but after 3, now I'm going to start charging. But I think a freemium makes sense. I think bartering got to be clear. Too many times I see bartering happens because somebody, again, is struggling, and so the bartering ends up not being even, or as the young kids would say, or as I would say as a young kid, even Stevens. We want even Stevens. So we want to make sure that a bartering situation is equal, and that what each person is receiving or each business is receiving is comparable. But sometimes bartering is just as easy as say, I'm going to send you an invoice for this, and I'm going to send you for an invoice for that. It's a wash in the end.
The accountants would prefer that anyway.
Yeah, I find people behave better as clients when they have a little skin in the game. So I like reduced prices. You can make it a significant reduction, but like to Stacie's point, if they don't have a little bit that they feel like they're paying for, the relationship is just weird sometimes. I don't know how else to describe it, but so giving it away entirely, that makes me nervous. Maybe it'd be appropriate, but I'd say greatly reduced pricing might be better. So that's just my point of view on it, though. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I mean, I think it also probably depends a little bit on your business and how you're trying to grow it. So
I think I'll add to that, Brian. I think in the coaching, and John, I see you just got off mute, so we'll pass the baton over to you next. I think with the coaching business, because this is really referencing coaching, this question. I think being able to give somebody, even if it's a 15-minute free consultation, because within coaching, you got to make sure there's a certain, as I was, je ne sais quoi, do you have it between each other? Sometimes it's just oil and water and you can't define why or what it is, but you just personalize conflict. Who knows? The chemistry just isn't there. So I think offering like a 15-minute freemium makes sense. So then that way you can say, yeah, I think I could work with that person.
Yeah, I think you can give away something depending on the industry. So coaching is a good example, is what I was going to say, depending on what industry you're in. A free consultation is fine. You can do free consultations without actually giving anything away, essentially, other than your time. I'd be careful about giving away free services. I feel like it's a slippery slope. And I think you want people to have skin in the game, like Brian said. And then, yeah, bartering being a whole different story. If you're going to do bartering, I would treat it just like any other engagement and make sure you've got agreements and possibly even go as far as paying each other each month. But there's some benefit to free consultations for sure.
Yeah, and I'll say on the free consultations, especially in service agreement, service industries where you do want to select the right, well, in my world, it's called a problem statement. Like, what am I going in to fix, right? Or what am I going in to teach? Or what am I going in to help with? It's got to be a defined statement. And by giving those free consultations in the beginning, you really get to establish the relationship with the client and understand who they are and what they are. And if they are clear on who they are, what they are, and what they need, right? Because the more clarity that they have and are able to articulate, the easier it is for you to define and help provide a service or a solution to that. For Kristen, if I came in going, I don't know, I just need to know how to not, have somebody die on my, in my room. And you don't know if I've ever had CPR training or if I even know what a defibrillator is, if I saw one, or, and something like that. You have to understand a little bit more. So I give a free consultation to every client that I engage with, just because we need to level set and understand more about the client before we can offer them and say we can help, when we don't know if we can help or not. Because one, they may not be ready to hear what I have to tell them or do the homework that I'm going to need to give them, or either they haven't been able to articulate their pain point yet. And so sometimes that takes a few consultations to get to that point. So that's a normal standard practice, I think, for all three of us. I think Brian, speak for or four of us, Tiffany too. We all have that because we find it a value add there.
Yeah, I never charge for my initial discussions and assessment stuff that I'm doing with the company. I'm not giving them anything at that point. I'm getting to know them and we're getting to know each other. I don't think of that as providing a service. I guess kind of it is, but it's not the same, So
Like,
Alrighty, Tiffany Green, I am the person of positivity, but now I'm going to the naysayer side.
Okay.
And this is, Stacie, this is what we talked about, the maturity of your brand. Free at different points in your life are different. Your ability to do things. If the word on the street or in ecosystem is that a person can get to you and availability and you're easy and accessible to everyone, your value goes down. And I can see it in my business because I'll tell a person, I'll have someone who may be scheduled with me. They will cancel because of something, but I tell them, Someone would say you could go to the Today Show and they will give you 3 minutes. You will go to New York or California for 5 minutes because of what that brand is. But someone local, they'll say, "Oh, I can't make it because I got to do brain surgery right now." Something that's going to be ridiculous. So now, what is free, the freemium, all those things in the beginning with a certain time point, the art of saying no is something which is a powerful thing. Beyonce does not show up to everything. When you show up, it's a big deal. Because I don't go to everything. The consultation, if you're out there just giving content away and information, because like Lizzie says, I can get excited too when someone comes in, we're just running down the road, just happy-go-lucky, and you've just given away your, revenue. So I think we really have to be mindful of, like Stacie says, in what point you are in the maturity of your business determines how much you're ready and willing to give away, because these days, everyone thinks that they are an influencer and they're, I'll tell my 8 friends if you give me something for free,
And I do agree with you on that. I think the question is, are people aware of what their level of maturity? So Beyonce, or even like take a comedian, right? Because the comedians, they have to run a circuit. And even and music artists too. So when music artists start out, they are playing every street corner. They are playing anywhere you will let them play. They don't even care if it's a bar, what it is. And because they are building their maturity, they're building their namesake, they're building, their brand and their business with, same with a comedian. They're gonna go to every college and live in a car, trying to hit everywhere they can go to start out. When a small business starts out, Mike, this better than I, we are hustling. Like you're talking to who you can, you're going where you can. You're trying to get your awareness out there. That's level 1, is just making sure people are aware of who you are and what you do. Mike, you do a great job in helping, small businesses do that. And then once you have established that, then you have to back that up with what you do, right? So you have to have that's where I come in with the ops part, is we're building the infrastructure while you're letting them know about you to make sure that you have a strong foundation to build upon and continue up that maturity level. So business maturity is not a common theme, but if you think about it as the same as a personal maturity, I learned to crawl and then I learned to walk, and then, because I build more skills, right? Each child builds skills and dexterity. They learn to use crayons, then they used to learn pencils, things that take finer skill sets. You have done that same thing and built that maturity of build those skill sets and all those toolkits, and and you have experience of how to apply them. That's the higher level of maturity. Once you have that application, and it's like for me, I've been out 25 years, right, in doing this consulting work for Fortune 500s, NASA. I mean, I've run the gambit. Plus, I'm now, I grew up in small business. So I know what those, through my mother and family members and extended family members who own small businesses. I'm trying to bring my 25 years of skills that most people don't know about and apply them to and make them available to small businesses. But I have to restart that maturity level with that different line of business, right? With awareness. And then I already have the tools, but I have to be able to engage with that. So I think you still have to hustle, but if you are at that point of I'm mature, right, and now I can't be available to everybody all the time, there's a way of articulating that makes you not look pompous and and more than and stay humble, let's just put it that way, while still valuing the time and being mindful in the management of the time that you have. Sometimes you engage another person. Like I I'm not saying I'm not available or my value is not there, but I do engage Tim to help, start with new people who don't know us. And then I come in and, step in to talk and talk to them and do their engagement. So there are different models you can put together to help with that as well.
I would like to expand on what you said, Stacie, because so often with a small business, you hear the word hustle being used so much. And I think, and I've also heard a lot of small business owners say, when you're first starting out and you're hustling, you don't say no. And I heard Mike say, you got to learn how to say no, because guess what? I'm going to use your analogy, Stacie. I'm going to try and bear with me. It may be a bad one, I don't know, but it came to mind, so I'm going to use it. If you are a Christian rock band and you're starting out and you're hustling to try to get gigs, are you going to go to every biker's bar trying to get gigs and like, where are you getting, like, no, that's not what I call purpose alignment, right? You're going to try to find venues that align with what you're trying to do. If a popular biker bar chain reached out to that Christian rock group and said, for some reason, they said, I'd like you to play all of our establishments, should they?
Only if
How much are they paying, ma'am?
Yeah, but
and there
see,
are
that's
Christian biker
reactionary.
bars out there,
But
right?
that's reactionary, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
cannot just go based on what they're paying, because what you remember now, people view you, the Christian rock band, as you're in a partnership now with this bar establishment. Does that support their purpose? And what does that do with those players that they may actually truly want to partner with in the future?
So,
Sounds like
Stephanie,
an outreach opportunity to me. I mean,
Brian, Brian Kinzie, that's exactly what I'm saying. We're a Christian band and they're Satanists. We have to reach out and work with them, especially because their check is very large and we kind of need it because we're tired of riding in the minivan.
Yeah, you get the large check now, but you might not get the large checks later. That's the thing. You got, when you're building your business and you're hustling, you can't think about what's good just for today. And I think that's what happens with a lot of small businesses. Why do a lot of small businesses end?
Because they run out of money, steam, and energy.
Cash flow. Yeah, and they are working off of a reactionary mindset and not a long-term mindset.
I will agree with that, with the strategic alignment, thinking about where you should go. Now, Mike, you talk to me all the time, right, with media, of if you're in the, getting in the room, right, and getting exposure. Well, for exposure, sometimes that is really good just to be in the room if you know how to work the room. And that's something you and I have been working on, over the last year, and along with Tiffany and, and of course, Tim pushing me out, because I am much more focused on my expertise of doing the operational improvements than I am marketing, networking, and, connecting with people in larger social entities. But for Tiffany's part, strategically, I do well in very small groups. So when Mike takes me out to an event and it's a smaller group, we're sitting at a table of people I don't know or I may know. The Junior Achievement was one of the events that you invited me to attend with you. That was a great opportunity for me because I was able to engage with people in a little bit more intimate setting because they were right around in the table with me. I had the security of knowing Mike, right? So it's not like I was there by myself with nobody I know. And I also had the opportunity to learn about Junior Achievement, which was a nonprofit I wanted to understand more about. So it was a great opportunity. Now, another opportunity that Mike had offered us is the Million Cups over at University of Richmond. And when I went in there, I was a lot more uncomfortable. But, Mike was there and he, came up, said hello, here, come sit here. And then I engaged with a lot of people I didn't know, including some, former board members of MPWRPeople, people that are now coming into Mike's show. And so in some cases, I think it is good to be in the room, but you have to select the room that's right for you. And for me, it is these more a little bit intimate settings that work well for me.
One of the things that we always talk about, and this is what Tiffany and I talk about, is purpose alignment. I go into a big room. I'm the most uncomfortable person there. But Stacie, you'll see, I bring my friends with me, and that way, that's the comfort blanket. So we all win because we're in a room with 300 people, but we have our 8, 10 people who we're good with, and we can work with each other because we understand we're in purpose alignment with those people. We don't know about the table next to us. We don't know anything about what they're doing, who they are. So it does help when you go to rooms and you're networking. You engage with the people who are good with you. Really quickly, and this goes out to Brian, and this has to do with the partnership part, and John as well. They always say it's slow to hire, quick to fire. What happens when we know this partnership is falling apart? How fast do we pull the plug, and how do we do it so that we are still cordial when we see each other, when we know that we just had a train wreck as a partnership?
I'll let John handle the legal side of how you do this, but from a personal side, I think the key thing is just open communication up front as far as why this isn't working. Hopefully you have two sides are, for lack of a better way of putting it, mature enough to have that conversation. That's a point where if you really are still committed to making it work and it's not working, you might want to consider bringing an outside mediator. There are people that do that, and that's their whole thing, and that can be useful. That person can also, as an outside third party, potentially help kind of broker a cleaner breakup if that ends up being the direction things go. But I think that the key thing, though, is have that open conversation about why it's not working, what might need to change to make it work if you're still interested in trying to make it work. But then once you decide it's not going to make it work, it's okay, how can we separate cleanly? It's in everyone's best interest. It's not going to help anybody if there's a whole bunch of bodies left on the floor afterwards. That's not a good look for any of the organizations or people involved if to have a very large public blow up as opposed to a cordial, we've decided to go in different directions. People go in different directions all the time. That's normal. It's not normal when there's a spectacular public breakup. You want to avoid those. And John can probably talk about how to avoid that legally. So,
I don't know. It might be unavoidable. I think to Brian's point, you've got to have the conversation sooner rather than later, as soon as it comes up. Where it gets difficult a lot of times is one side is unhappy, the other side doesn't even know that or recognize it, so they feel like they've sort of just been piled on quickly. So you've got to see if you can straighten it out. If not, then you start looking at your options that should be in the contract about termination or dispute resolution if you're in a full-on dispute about something. But I would not sit back on anything if things aren't going the way you want them to go. And Stacie made some good points about limiting the scope and the time of some of these to try and get a feel for how they might work to begin with. All those things are ways you can protect yourself going into it.
Yeah,
I'd like to add that I've actually dissolved. I've been in partnerships that have gone south in my career, and they've all ended amicably. And I would say the reason being doesn't mean there's no hurt, because it's true. If you've ever heard somebody say when a business partnership ends, it feels like a divorce. It's true. Some people will say it feels worse than a divorce, depending on how long you've been together. But the key is communication. So if you are in any relationship, if you're not communicating how you're feeling, and then like John said, all of a sudden now you vocalize to your partner, well, for the last 10 years, I've been really pissed off over this. Doesn't really, work out well. So anytime you have an issue, communicate it. Anytime you're feeling a certain way, communicate it. And maybe you'll be able to resolve it. But if not, when the partnership dissolves, no one's going to go, well, I didn't see that coming. When it dissolves, it's like, well, we tried to make it work and it couldn't, but let's stay in touch.
But there's one last thing I will say is, because I know we're getting to our time, we've been talking a lot of things about partnerships, almost as if they were just, one-on-one relationships. But if you have employees and you're in a partnership, meaning a legal partnership, you both own parts of the company, or you're in a teaming agreement where you have independent companies, but you're doing something in the longer to that term that relationship goes, please be mindful of the impact to the employees. I worked for a company that was my utopia for at least 3 years, and then the partners started falling apart, and they went to, we called it marriage counseling, but business counseling, right, to try to figure it out. It ended up, they made some poor hires, which crushed the culture. And I felt like a child of divorce because I was very close to the owner, all 3 owners of it. It was a small company that had grown. And so there is a significant impact sometimes to the employee staff, and you need to keep that in mind too,
It's very true, Stacie. It's just very much like a divorce, and divorce impacts children. So ending of a partnership impacts all the employees
and the people and the employees and how they feel security or lack of security in the company, those types of things. They're just something to keep in mind as well, beyond the legal and the personal relationship or teaming that you have one-on-one. It's all the other people that are also impacted.
Our leader, Tiffany Joy Green, her relationships end amicably because she's Canadian. And that's how they do things there. So, hey, you've been listening to the Empower Hour. Tiffany Green, really quickly. What can people expect next time? What do you have upcoming?
So this month we have on the 11th at 1 o'clock, we have Contracts 101 with our very own John Rabil. He's going to be teaching that on the 11th at 1. He looks a little surprised, but trust me, he's not. He knows it's coming. And then on the 18th, we have Are You Managing or Leading with Jared Ryder with Off Square One. And then on the 23rd, we have somebody coming to the Evolve Together with Empower People show, a global sensation. Global sensation. Everybody loves them. Oh baby, that was actually a clue. So he's giving you 2 clues. I said he, and he says oh baby a lot. The announcement on who that will be is coming next week, so stay tuned. And if you would like to attend that event to hear the conversation live, you can. That information will be disseminated next week as well, but it'll also be recorded and on ESPN Richmond on the 30th at 5 o'clock in the morning. Correct, Mike?
In the morning, a.m. Oh, dark 30. Kristen, what you got upcoming?
We have a full classroom schedule. The July and August is busy here with all of our new nursing students, our new dental students and physical therapists. They all need their CPR certification before school starts. We've got a host of high school students who are coming through to learn their CPR as part of their physical education. So things are busy here in the office, and we would love to have our community come and visit.
All righty. Lizzie.
Hi, well, basically what I'm doing is I am trying to fill my schedule. I am on vacation for the next couple of weeks, though. My birthday is on Monday coming up. So my twin sister and I, but I am just trying to fill my schedule, and I'm here in Virginia. So I'm just networking and meeting new people, and that's what I'm doing right now. So
Stacie.
Oh, I'm wrapping up vacation and as well. So I'm coming to you live from Nags Head. But enjoying that time off and having been able to cultivate the ability for Tim and I both to actually be off and the business is still running. So I'm very excited. That's a big accomplishment for any business.
We've had that conversation before.
Huh?
We've had that conversation. It's like a self-driving car.
Yep. So yeah, that brings me a lot of joy because I've been able to do this. We have new series of Level Up with Love are coming through Mike King and the ESPN radio over the next quarter. We have a training coming up, I think, in September with Empower People on operations manuals. And so we're just gearing up for the rest of the summer and getting ready for the fall.
And your newsletter.
Oh, and we have our newsletter. Yes, if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, please go to our website or LinkedIn. We have a new newsletter that will drop, I think, the week after next. On the 15th, it'll drop on my birthday.
There you go, Brian Kinzie.
50.
Woohoo!
Dropping a newsletter for that. So I'm very excited. I'm very proud of my age. I have wisdom. My son says my gray hairs. I told him those are my wisdom hairs. So I've earned them. So yeah, we have the newsletter is a monthly newsletter, and we highlight community involvement, education, and upcoming events. So subscribe today.
Yeah,
Brian Kinzie, what's the word?
I'm with Stacie. The best thing about being a small business owner is when you graduate to being able to take a vacation. I'll be doing that next week myself. But Cindy's got everything covered while I'm on vacation, so it's all good. Tinker HR is keeping on rolling while I am rolling myself, not in Tinker HR.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you for joining us. This is the Empower Hour. Tiffany Green, it is her baby, her brainchild. We'd like to thank you. It is the first Wednesday of every month. That's where you find us. We bring in the best and the brightest. These folks got to go. They can't hang out with me all day. They're out changing the world. You know, it's like, I got to go. All right, folks, take care. Bye-bye.
Here.